for our committee reports. Select committee. Pratt, Congresswoman Pratt.
Thank you, Speaker. Rules and Ethics Committee met for endorsement, and as Congresswoman Buffalo had stated for the record earlier, she needed to chair the Governmental Operations Committee, so that's where she was during part of the endorsement. Bill number ONCA 1684, an act to provide an appropriation to the Office of the Attorney General for the Osage Nation for fiscal year 2017 in the amount of $1,618,412 and to establish an alternate effective date. The sponsor is Ron Shaw. The co-sponsor is Otto Hamilton. The final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 3 yes votes from Pratt, Buffalo Head, and Edwards. ONCA 1679, an act to acknowledge, recognize, and reward Osage students who have earned the status of academic achievement and excellence, grades 7 through 11, 2016 and 17 academic year, by supporting and rewarding their participation in summer 2017 academic camps for higher achievers through this one-time pilot program. Sponsor is Archie Mason. The co-sponsor is Otto Hamilton. The final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 2 yes votes from Pratt and Edwards, 1 absent Buffalo Head. ONCA 1683, an act to remove the safe harbor of elected officials and employees of the Osage Nation who act in reliance on the opinions of the Attorney General and to establish an alternate effective date. The sponsor is Maria Whitehorn. The final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 2 yes votes from Pratt and Edwards. ONCA 16100, an act to repeal and replace the Osage Nation Workforce Pay for Performance Act with the Merit-Based Employment System Act and to establish alternate effective date. The sponsor is Shannon Edwards. Final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 2 yes votes from Pratt and Edwards. ONCA 16112, an act to require all donations made on behalf of the Osage Nation to be funded, administered, and awarded by the Osage Nation Foundation. The sponsor is Alice Buffalo Head. Co-sponsor is Shannon Edwards and Angela Pratt. The final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 2 yes votes from Pratt and Edwards. ONCR 1635, a resolution to require proof of tribal involvement for artisans who claim Osage affiliation. The sponsor is Alice Buffalo Head. Final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 2 yes votes from Pratt and Edwards. ONCR 1642, a resolution to state the intended purpose of Bluestem Ranch LLC, to support the Bluestem Ranch LLC board's management of the entire Bluestem Ranch as initially supported and championed to the Osage Nation Congress by Principal Chief Sandy Griff. The sponsor is Joseph Tillman. Co-sponsors are William Supernall, Alice Buffalo Head, Shannon Edwards, John Maker, James Norris, Angela Pratt, Ron Shaw, and Maria Whitehorn. The final committee action is due passes properly engrossed with 2 yes votes from Pratt and Edwards. Thank you.
Thank you. As was moved earlier, these particular bills are now on 3rd reading. We're going to begin 3rd reading on these bills that were just reported out. And as we know, there are a number of bills yet to be engrossed, and we'll be taking another recess in a few minutes, as well as appropriations be meeting, their meeting scheduled at 5. So we have another full day, and again, my hat is off to all of you for your business, taking care of our tribal business today. Beginning now with ONCA 1679. This is an act to acknowledge, recognize, and reward Osage students who have earned the status of academic achievement and excellence grade 7 through 11, 2016-2017 academic year by supporting and rewarding their participation in summer 2017 academic camps for higher achievers through this one-time pilot program. The sponsor is myself. I'll waive my time up
for the reasons that we haven't heard from Education Department, we haven't heard from the Executive Branch, and under normal circumstances, when we roll something out new, we at least come to the table to discuss new pilot programs, services, projects, etc. And there are a lot of things that I don't like about this budgetary session. And I'm going to be voting on things later on today and in the next few days that I'm not particularly thrilled about having to be forced to vote on things and roll them out of here in a fashion that I'm not comfortable with. And therefore, the things that are pilot projects and new initiatives, I feel safe in not voting for those because I don't have all the information that I think I need. But it also doesn't have an employee's salary attached to it, whereas some of the others do, and that's why I feel compelled to. I don't want to see anything shut down, but I don't want to vote on anything that I don't have a full grasp on. And this is one of those things because I haven't heard from the Education Department. So I'll be voting no for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Any other wishing to voice? Councilman Whitehorn.
Mr. Speaker, members of Congress, I review this legislation. It's my understanding that there were two pieces of legislation that had this enacting legislation and a companion bill that had the appropriation in it. It's my understanding the appropriation bill hasn't moved on. I reviewed it and I do not see an appropriation in this act to authorize. The purpose of it, it says, is to the purpose of this legislation is to recognize those students who will be enrolled in 7th through 11th grades this academic year, 16 and 17, and are identified by record to be accelerated, gifted, and talented academic achievers who have excellent athletic potential, music achievement, voice achievement, arts achievements, debate achievements, science achievements, etc., acknowledged and earned by the individual student. It's for summer camp. And it also says within this bill that this is a pilot program. It's a one-time project with future years to be determined. I support this legislation. I support it mainly on the fact that I know that most of our public school systems have a lot of programs that help special needs children that struggle with their academics. But I feel like that our public school systems oftentimes don't recognize the high achievers, the students that need to be stretched a little bit more to have that extra care, that extra attention to see what really makes their mind tick and for them to plug in with people that are enthusiastic about helping them stretch those imaginations. I think that this bill gives the Education Department an opportunity to take a look at it and see if they can't formulate something to fill this niche and fit this niche and come back to Congress requesting an appropriation to possibly do that, which we can consider at this time. On the sole fact that it recognizes our kids that achieve academic excellence, I'm going to support this bill and I encourage you to do that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of Congress wishing to voice at this time? Hearing none, the question is, shall ORCA 1679 pass?
Congressman Maker,
Yes.
Congressman Morris,
Yes.
Congresswoman Pratt,
No.
Congressman Shaw,
Yes.
Congressman Superman,
No.
Congressman Walker,
Yes.
Congresswoman Warren,
Yes.
Congresswoman Bethlehem,
No.
Congresswoman Edwards,
Yes.
Congressman Hamilton,
Yes.
Speaker Mason,
Yes.
Congressman Tillman,
Abstain.
ONCA 1679 passes. We do have an alternate effective date. Question is, shall the alternate effective date pass? Congresswoman Edwards.
Well, I'm not sure what the alternate effective date means in this regard. Maybe it means you're supposed to get started right away. But I think I'll be voting against the alternate effective date so that in 60 days they'll have something back to us, which is what we talked about.
Thank you. Question is, shall the alternate effective date pass? When we have a roll call vote, please.
Congressman Norris,
No.
Congresswoman Pratt. No. Congressman Shaw,
No.
Congressman Supernaw,
No.
Congressman Tillman.
No.
Congressman Walker,
No.
Congresswoman Whitehorn,
No.
Congresswoman Bethlehead,
No.
Congresswoman Edwards.
No.
Congressman Hamilton,
No.
Congressman Maker,
No.
Speaker Mason.
Yes. The alternate effective date does not pass. And ONCA 1679 moves to enrollment. Moving now to ONCA 1683. An act to remove the safe harbor of elected officials and employees of the Osage Nation who act in reliance on the opinions of the Attorney General and to establish an alternate effective date. Sponsor is Congresswoman Whitehorn, and Congresswoman Whitehorn, you have 8 minutes, either opening, closure, or
I'll split my time.
split your time.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, members of Congress, Assistant Chief, before you is a bill that I urge you to support. We find ourselves in the middle of this budgetary session with no documents in front of us because the Budget Parameter and Limitations Act is our guiding budgetary document that gives us dates and times and documents that authorizes them to sit on our table so we can make our appropriation decisions. The reason that we don't have these documents before us is because the executive sought an opinion from the Attorney General asking if the Budget Parameters and Limitation Act was constitutional in light of the Supreme Court decision Standing Bear versus Whitehorn. And in her opinion, she says that parts of the Budget Parameters and Limitations Act is unconstitutional in her opinion, and that because the Act has no severability clause, which we inserted back into it, that she contends that the whole Act is unconstitutional. We have documents I presented at the table that since the Chief's office has gotten this Attorney General's opinion from the Attorney General, that he has by email or letter instructed our accounting department not to follow the guidelines of the Budget Limitations and Budget Parameters and Limitations Act. So we have a directive to employees to disregard that Osage law based on an Attorney General's opinion, which has really hurt us during this session. And also, I think that it involve employees, telling them not to proceed with the lawful Osage Nation, with the laws that are currently on the Osage Nation books is a terrible predicament to place our employees in. I put this act in here, the reason that the Chief's office feels like that they have the ability to do so is one sentence in this act that gives them safe harbor. If they act on an Attorney General's opinion, then they can't be prosecuted for
not following Osage law. So there's several things I'd like to say about it. One is that I feel like the Supreme Court of the Osage Nation is the only one that can legally, lawfully declare Osage Nation law unconstitutional. The Attorney General can issue an opinion on it. So, I think that removal of that clause, that safe harbor clause, will possibly going forward keep administrations from directing our employees not to follow the law. I don't know that anybody would be so bold to ask somebody to disobey law if they didn't feel like they had a safe harbor to go to where they wouldn't be prosecuted. Some of the concerns the committee table was, well, that's going to leave our employees wide open. And I contend no, that it doesn't. They have an instructive email that directs them by their supervisor. I'm shifting gears again. Assistant Chief Redcorn passed a law, not related to this, when he was still a congressman, of our Open Records Act, that he put language in there that if any supervisor of an employee instructs them not to obey the law, that's a prosecutable crime. So I think that part of our administration at one point realized the undue stress and burden that puts on our employees to instruct them to do something that isn't lawful. I talked to the Attorney General. She saw no reason why this would harm or hurt to be taken out of this law. I ask that you support it. I'm going to reserve the rest of my time to answer any more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any members of Congress wishing to voice for or against 1683? Congressman Walker.
Well, I expressed in committee, I think this sends a bad message. In my opinion, mainly that a few of the laws on our books, I would like to point out that were obviously cherry-picked by the executive branch, were sent over to the AG for some official opinions out of their office. They went their way. That wasn't a big surprise to me. So it's really one of those deals now where it's like, well, hey, the game's not going how we like it, so let's just change the rules. These opinions can be a guide for not only us, but for them on how to strengthen our laws, improve our laws, and prevent having to go to the Supreme Court and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially in litigation fighting amongst the branches. So mainly for those two reasons, I'll be voting no on this, and I would urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman Buffalo.
Well, I was one of the committee members that specifically asked how this would impact employees, and then I was reminded of the law that Assistant Principal Chief had written while he was here that does protect them when they have been instructed by their boss to ignore the law. I think the bad message that's being sent is we don't have to obey Budget Parameters Act. There's no need to follow any of this when the Supreme Court did not tell anyone that that was unconstitutional. We relied upon, or not we, the executive branch relied upon the Attorney General opinion, knowing that nothing could be done because of this one sentence. That's the bad message. Now, if they felt it was that unconstitutional and wanted to take us back over to the Supreme Court for them to issue an opinion where it's proper, that should have been done. But to just tell employees, here's this AG's opinion, knowing that the AG doesn't have the right to declare anything unconstitutional. So we don't want you to obey a law that's active. That's the bad message. So I'll be supporting this, and I would encourage everyone to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of Congress wishing to voice for or against 1683? Mr. Supranov.
I'll be supporting this. Even if it passes the Attorney General can still make opinions as a guide decision. You don't rely on it. But we had a case, a Supreme Court case, early in the constitutional government where the chief at that time had just chose not to follow the Free Press Act. And when that decision was rendered by the Supreme Court, they reinforced what's already in the Constitution, that nobody, no branch of government, or no individual can decide on their own that something is not constitutional. That function relies strictly and solely with the judicial branch. So I urge you to support this.
Thank you. Any other members of Congress wishing to voice for or against 1683? Hearing none, Congresswoman Whitmore, you have closure.
Briefly, I will. I was on this body when we, and I was new and fresh to it when we passed a Declaratory Judgment Act. I believe Congresswoman Edwards was the sponsor of that bill. And that Declaratory Judgment Act gives the executive or the legislative branch the road map to find out if something is constitutional or unconstitutional. It lets us bypass the lower courts and the Osage tribal court system and go straight to the Supreme Court to make judgments on constitutionality. Previous to that being passed, all we had was the Attorney General's bill and the Attorney General's opinion. But now we do have the Declaratory Judgment Act, which is the law that we should use and the executive branch should use when they want something declared unconstitutional. I agree with Congressman Walker that the Attorney General's opinions should be a tool utilized for us to strengthen and change our laws where they need to be changed. But that's as far as I go with those opinions. They aren't to bypass the separation of powers in a three-branch government. She has not the power to declare law unconstitutional. It can be her opinion. I urge you to support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The question is, shall ONCA 1683 pass?
Congresswoman Pratt.
Yes.
Congressman Shaw.
Yes.
Congressman Supranov.
Yes.
Congressman Tillman.
Yes.
Congressman Walker.
No.
Congresswoman Whitehorn.
Yes.
Congresswoman Bucklehead.
Yes.
Congresswoman Edwards.
Yes.
Congressman Hamilton.
No.
Congressman Maker.
No.
Congressman Norris.
No.
Speaker Mason.
Yes. ONCA 1683 passes, and there is an alternate effective date. The question is, shall the alternate effective date pass? Those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. The yeses have it. ONCA 1683 moves to enrollment. Referencing now ONCA 1684. is an act to provide an appropriation to the office of the Attorney General of the Osage Nation for fiscal year 2017 in the amount of $1,618,412, and to establish an alternate effective date. Sponsor is Congressman Shaw. Congressman Shaw, you have 8 minutes. You can either split the time or use it all up in the beginning or have closure.
I'll close.
Okay. Any members of Congress wishing to voice for or against ONCA 1684? Hearing none, Congressman Shaw, you have closure at this time, 8 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My comments are about this appropriation legislation and some many to follow. We've had some reports of these bills coming out of committee as do not pass or do pass. And I understand the intense discomfort experienced by my colleagues, but I still remind you of our congressional mandate to pass an annual budget to fund the executive branch operations for this year. And these budgets, as they come before you this afternoon, serve to do that. There is still, nonetheless, despite the fact that we've not got the information that we usually do, that we're used to, that we're comfortable with, that we feel like that we can perform our due diligence with, there was still some due diligence exercise. It wasn't entirely devoid of any attempt of the Congress and the committees to be able to make sensible adjustments to the amounts that were presented, particularly with the committee substitutes that were presented. I commend the committees. I saw all of them in action trying to grapple with this, even with the committee substitutes. I saw many different emotions being expressed, all of them very appropriate, as we worked hard to make the best of what we were given. In hopes that we'll have some changes, perhaps even in our Constitution, but certainly in law, that allow us to regain some of the due diligence and the ability to exercise it at a level that we're comfortable with. But I believe the bills that will come before you today, including this one for the Attorney General, are fair. I think that they are ones that will help fund the government and its branches. There have been appropriate adjustments done. They're not just rubber stamp. So I encourage you to endorse them with a yes vote.
Thank you. Members of Congress, the question is, shall bill number ONCA 1684 pass?
Congressman Shaw,
Yes.
Congressman Supernaw,
Yes.
Congressman Tillman,
Yes.
Congressman Walker,
Yes.
Congresswoman Whitehorn,
Yes.
Congresswoman Bethlehead.
Yes.
Congresswoman Edwards.
Yes.
Congressman Hamilton,
Yes.
Congressman Baker,
Yes.
Congressman Norris,
Yes.
Congresswoman Pratt,
Yes.
Speaker Mason.
Yes. And ONCA 1684 passes. We have an alternate effective date. Question is, shall the alternate effective date pass? Those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. ONCA 1684 moves to enrollment. Referencing now bill number ONCA 16-100. An act to repeal and replace the Osage Nation Workforce Pay for Performance Act with the Merit-Based Employment System Act, and to establish an alternate effective date. Sponsor is Shannon Edwards. Congresswoman Edwards, you have 8 minutes to split your time, or take it all up front, or have closure of 8.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of Congress. This has been one of those shalls in the Constitution. It's been a struggle for this Congress for many years. At first, we didn't have any merit system, and then we hired people to help us create a merit system. We got something off the ground. We couldn't get it passed. We presented something else, and it wasn't me, actually. I wasn't the person that championed it in the beginning. And finally, we picked up some work from a former congresswoman and passed something. And I think that was okay, because we started working with it and we could see what was working well and what wasn't working so well. We went through 2 or 3 human resources directors, and then we got to where we were today with a new human resources director and some new personnel. And ironically, even as we were told that our bills that had these job descriptions in them were unconstitutional, the human resources director came over and said, that was a big help to me, because I was able to figure out that I needed these kind of personnel in the human resources department, and I needed some guidance on how to make our department very strong. So again, while we might have made a mistake in doing that, in the long run, the outcome was good, even as the human resources director tells us. So when I started working on this bill again, I went back and met with the human resources director and spent probably 2 meetings and 3 or 4 phone calls. I took the legislative counsel with me, I took budget analyst with me, and I said, let's listen to what he has to say about what's not good with the system we have and what we can do to make it better. And so we did that. And legislative counsel helped me draft a lot of this. I drafted a lot of it, and we went through and did what I think we needed to do to make this bill better. We put a lot of definitions in the beginning. So again, we all know what we're talking about. When we say, what is merit performance recognition? Well, we have a definition. It means this. When we say, what does personal time off mean? We put it in there so we would know. What's a qualified merit employee? It's in there. So the bill stays the same in some regards. It says that you've got to have a classification for all your employees. They're either merited or non-merited. It took most of the language about non-merited employees out. It said these people are not merited employees, but it took out what's going to happen to them in terms of bonuses or compensation, and you'll see that in another bill. But more importantly, it went through and it said, this is how you're going to hire according to merit. That information came from the Human Resources Department. This is some of the record keeping that needs to be done. That came as a result of realizing, well, it's kind of hard for us to budget sometimes when we don't have a big picture of how our employee system works and how our merit system works. Then it talks about merit performance recognition, which was in there before. Again, the Human Resources Director said, I want to do some non-monetary merit recognition, put it in there. And I want to do some monetary recognition, and I want to do it like this. We put it in there. And then we talked about base pay and annual adjustments, and I think that many of you were here when the Human Resources Director and the merit, I forget what her exact title was, Anna Trumbley, were here and gave us their presentation about how that was going to work. So I put it in here. I incorporated what they talked about. And we did that in committee. We did good committee work, and I thank the committee. Finally, special merit base pay adjustment. Talked to again, the Human Resources Director said sometimes we've got these positions that we just can't fill. We don't have enough salary in them. So reacted to that and put it in there. I want to especially thank the Congress for pointing out to me a way upon which this bill and our employment system can be even more transparent than it has been in the past, and certainly transparent in these very trying times with inability for this branch in particular to know what's going on in our employment system. So thanks to the speaker and those of you that provided me some information from other tribes on how they keep their employment transparent. So you'll also see that there is a provision that provides for publication of the positions in our tribe and the compensation. So I would ask for your support for all these reasons. Thank you.
Any members of Congress? Congresswoman Buffalohead.
Thank you, Speaker. For the last week or so, I had got some calls from a few employees that I have a good working relationship with, and one of them said, well, why does Congress have to get involved with merit? Is that any of their business? Because the executive has the right to do what they want to do. I said, well, the Constitution says, and I hardly ever throw that out there, but I want to throw that out there, Section 22. Under the legislative branch, it says, merit-based employment system, the Osage Nation Congress shall establish a system under which the merit principle will govern the employment of persons by the Osage Nation. The Congress shall include within the merit principle system a grievance procedure which must be exhausted before seeking review in the trial court. It addresses merit under Congress's duties. Page 12 of ONCA 16100, we address a merit protection council. We address employee grievance. We address transparency of wage and salary information. We had a discussion earlier in committee where I said to Congresswoman Whitehorn, I may hold the same opinion as a few of you, and I may vote a little differently because I would like to see a piece of legislation that addresses this, and if the executive branch opposes it and they want to go to court, then that's what we'll do, rather than sticking an amendment in every time we want to try to drive home a point. I am not in favor of that. So this piece of legislation does that. I'm almost certain that executive will not like this piece of legislation, and in the event that they don't, we will go to court, and the judicial branch will help us to determine whether or not this is constitutional or not. But I think that this is a good document. I'm going to be supporting it, and I would urge you to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of Congress wishing to voice for or against 16100? Congresswoman Whiteman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of Congress. Well, one good thing that I heard at the committee table was that our HR director had a very difficult time fitting into our old Workforce Pay for Performance Act. He said he did like the job descriptions that were in there. He said that was a very good guide to help him structure his office and to know what credentials that his employees needed, and he could send them to training. But the rest of it, he said, was very difficult to navigate. He's done the best with the bad law that he could. Last budgetary session, I think we realized we had a shortcoming in the Workforce Pay for Performance Act. And I believe Congresswoman Edwards put this on the table for us last time of session, possibly. Is that be correct? It's been around since spring. So we know that this is a bill that needed to be worked on. And as Congresswoman Buffalo had said in our conversation that we had just today about that, this is a result of one of the realizations of the law that wasn't working for us that we've come back to the table to work on. The other things that she talked about, I said, I think it's already in the works in this session. So when we have a realization that something's not working for the administration, the employees, the nation as a whole, that's our job to figure out a solution to make it work better. I feel like that this bill is that. It's a work in progress. I've seen many people weigh in on it and talk with us about what needs to be here, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Any other members of Congress wishing to voice for or against? Congresswoman Pratt.
I too will be supporting this bill, and I urge my colleagues, I sat at the table and listened to much of the discussion and weighed in. So I want to say that I commend Congresswoman Edwards and the rest of Congress that participated, just as she thanked everyone involved. And I'm not sure if everybody's really read it all the way through, but in engrossment, I get the pleasure of doing that again for one last time, exhaustively. So I think some of the questions that some Congress members had earlier and statements that were made, I think if you truly read this from start to finish, that you would find that maybe it would put your mind at ease that some of the language we would like to see included moving forward and talked about working on later on down the line has been included. So I think it's a collective effort spearheaded by Congresswoman Edwards, and I appreciate her and all the work that has been done. And I'm glad that it all worked out, because it was exhaustive, and I think it's worked out really well. So I would urge your support for this as well.
Thank you. Any other members of Congress wishing to voice for or against 16100? Hearing none, Congresswoman Edwards, closure. Okay. Question is, shall ONCA 16100 pass?
Congressman Supernaw.
Yes.
Congressman Tillman.
Yes.
Congressman Walker.
No.
Congresswoman Whitmore.
Yes.
Congresswoman Bethlehem.
Yes.
Congresswoman Edwards.
Yes.
Congressman Hamilton.
Yes.
Congressman Maker.
Yes.
Congressman Norris.
Yes.
Congresswoman Pratt.
Yes.
Congressman Shaw.
Yes.
Speaker Mason.
Yes. 16100 passes, and we do have an alternate effective date. Those in favor of the alternate effective date signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, say no. And ONCA 16100 moves to enrollment. Referencing now ONCA 16112, an act to require all donations. Members of Congress, we have a very important appropriations meeting starting at 5 today. We have these three bills yet to consider. We are going to go into a recess, come back. While we're doing that, I'm sure there'll be some more engrossment being done. So at this time, we need to go into recess. Congressman Evans.
Recess at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Motion been made and seconded. However, Congressman Walker.
Motion to amend to adjourn until tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Is there a second? Second. Second. Discussion to the amendment to the motion. Congressman Edwards.
Well, we were going to gross for another hour, and then we can come back at 6 o'clock and work for another hour, which would get presumably another 5 to 10 bills off the table tomorrow. That would give the opportunity for the clerk to start to enroll these bills that we've passed. Without that, that leaves her trying to get bills enrolled and everything else, and we discussed this earlier. So giving her the opportunity to have some time, and we may even want to meet tomorrow late afternoon to give her that opportunity to catch up. So we really need to work a little more tonight to not put us in a position of being way behind tomorrow.
Any more discussion to the amendment to the motion? Councilman Buckles.
I won't be supporting the amended time because of, I stated the reasons earlier. I thought we were going to work later yesterday than what we did, and we probably should have. But in order for the clerk to get stuff enrolled, I feel like tonight we need to work as late as we can so that we are not, seriously, not in a rush on Thursday and Friday trying to get stuff out and voted on and enrolled and then sent over. I feel like that just puts us in a situation that if we can work late tonight, we don't have to go there.
Any more discussion around the amendment that's being voiced? Acknowledge Congressman Shaw and then
I'd
Congressman.
like to make a motion to amend the amendment to the motion to make it call of the chair or speaker.
No, we have an amendment.
Go on.
That's not discussion. Any more discussion to the amendment that's being voiced for the,
Can't do two amendments.
Okay, I'll hold that till they can.
Councilman Walker, did you have something to?
I did, I would just point out that we have processed 5 additional bills as a result of staying or recessing and allowing them to engross and coming back in. There's 2 or 3 other ones we didn't get to vote on that will be on third reading tomorrow if we don't vote on them this evening. Our staff of 2 or 3 basically, including council that is working on them, mainly the clerk and Mr. Gill. I mean, she still has the journal to do, set the agenda, other things. I just feel like putting 16 bills or fast tracking 16 bills today was unnecessary and unfair to the staff. We've got until Friday at 4:30. So to say that if we don't do this right now, then we're going to be here till late Wednesday and late Thursday. Well, if we put in a good day tomorrow and a good day Thursday, we can knock all of this stuff out. We processed, 18 bills in 3 days in a special session just last year. So I think for the staff's sake, I think that we should adjourn until tomorrow morning and let them catch up.
Any other discussion to the amendment to the motion? Congresswoman Evans.
They can't catch up until we do more of this work. We need to do some more work.
I'm going to call for a vote at this time and have a roll call vote, please, to the amendment to the motion.
Call for a voice vote. Can I do that?
You can request it.
Request a voice, I'm requesting a voice vote. You could have voted for a bill at the time you discussed.
I'll acknowledge that. Voice vote. Those in favor of the motion to amend the motion signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no.
No.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Let's go by the loudest.
I tried that earlier.
Congressman Zelman.
Yes.
Congressman Walker.
Yes.
Congresswoman Whitehorn.
Yes.
Congresswoman Bethlehem.
No.
Congresswoman Edwards.
No?
Congressman Hamilton.
Yes.
Congressman Maker.
No.
Congressman Norris.
No.
Congresswoman Pratt.
No.
Congressman Shaw.
Yes.
Congressman Supernaw.
No.
Speaker Mason.
No. So now to the motion. And the motion, please restate that motion.
Recess till 6 o'clock.
A recess to 6 o'clock is the motion. Acknowledge Congressman Shaw.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to call of the chair.
Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Those in favor of the amendment to the motion, signify by saying yes.
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 Those opposed, say no. Yeses have it. So we're gonna adjourn now until the call of the chair. We're in a recess. Call of the chair.